It's not because I want to give you a pep talk or because I want to make you feel good about yourselves. No, I'm here to tell you the truth.
Hey, welcome into the live show on a Thursday. It is noon Pacific Standard Time. This is my normal Thursday live. And I thought I was kicking out the cats, and I have little kittens that are running all over the place because they ran past me and I was late for my show. So now I have them behind my monitors trying to fight with my cords, which is making this very distracting. I wanted to say a couple things. Today's show, I wanted to start out, I was planning on not having really anything to talk about, but I realized I have made a couple of mistakes lately in some things that I've said. And some could say they're big mistakes. I think they're small mistakes, but I want to clarify the mistakes anyways, because I think I have some explaining to do and I want to come clear with that right off the bat, and so that we're fully transparent about what I said, why I said it, and all those good things. So I want to do that. And along that lines, I have potentially a desire to go through and deep dive a little bit of the hearing, the guilty plea by Bryan Kohberger. It's 48 minutes long. I don't think we need to watch the whole thing, but we're either going to do just questions and answers on all the cases that I follow, Luigi Mangione, Bryan Kohberger, Rex Heuermann in the Lisk or Long Island serial killer case, or we'll do a deep dive a little bit into the some of the mistakes I may have made, some corrections I want to make, and some deep dive into the court hearing. Now, I didn't get a lot of votes. In fact, I got no votes ahead of time, even though I had a banner saying, hey, let me know what you'd rather hear, questions and answers, or would you like a little bit of a deep dive on that plea hearing? So let me know in the channel, one, if you just want open Q&A, two, if you want to hear a deep dive on the court hearing, the plea deal. In the meantime, I'll get prepared while I get a little bit of feedback in the chat, hopefully. I'll clarify some of the mistakes that I made, and we can go from there. So here's one of the mistakes that I feel like I made. Open Q&A is somebody's vote. And deep dive is somebody else's vote. So I'll wait for some more voting. And there's the cats attacking things. Okay, so let me go to a couple of mistakes that I made. There was a comment made. I made a comment that said I was stunned when I was in person for Bryan Kohberger's plea change that the that the judge had said, I want to hear you say that you did it and that you did it alone. And several people have said, I never heard that. I never heard that. And somebody went as far as to call me out and say, man, and they weren't doing it rude. They're just like, man, I went back and watched the entire replay. I never heard Hippler say, I want to hear that you did it and you did it alone. And so I went back and decided to watch the replay because I remember off my memory that it happened very, very early, like one of the first things that was said. And so I was like, how could I have missed that? Because I remember it distinctly. It was kind of a shocker moment for me to hear the judge say, I want to hear you admit that you did it and that you did it alone. And yet people are saying that never happened. And I'm not, people aren't calling me a liar. They're like, I don't understand where the misunderstanding is. I think there's two possibilities. One, I'm in some kind of effing Mandela effect thing, and that happened in another timeline, and it didn't happen, and I completely imagined the whole entire thing. It is possible, but I'm telling you, man, like it impacted me so much. I was like, holy shit, he literally is going to make him say on the stand, I did it and I did it alone. I remember that was a moment that shocked me, and it happened very early in the court proceeding. And then, like I said, when people called me out and said that didn't happen, and I went back and I watched the tape, it didn't happen, or did it? And I'll tell you why. And this is the reason why I want to say it. One, I apologize if I've said multiple times that it happened, because I can't prove it, because I've been watching the replay. But I will explain to you with video on why I could have still heard it and why I can't prove it. So and again, I'm not trying to do this to save face, because it's possible, like I said, I'm just in some kind of freaking Mandela effect, and I'm in some kind of alternate timeline, and I heard something that didn't happen. But let me put something up on screen, if you will, just to show you something real quick to demonstrate my point. All right. So let's go to this view here. All right. Now, in theory, I should be able to play sound. This video starts for about 17 seconds. It's right before the trial begins. It's about 17 seconds of no sound. So you won't be able to prove to me that I have sound until we get to the sound place. But if I hit play, you might be able to hear a little bit of court noise. And then we're about 10 more seconds. I want to show you something.
Mr.
Okay, do you hear the sound?
Horowitz, Ms. Jennings.
Can I get a thumbs up? We hear audio?
And
all right.
Mr. Nye is here as well. Might miss anybody?
So I'm assuming you hear the sound. Now, what I want to point out to you, because I will admit, I cannot prove to you Hippler said something to the effect of, I want to hear you admit that you did it and that you did it alone. And everybody's like, wow, did he really say that? I can't find it. I've watched it over and over again. I've watched it over and over again. So let's look one more time and let me show you. Right there. This video and other videos that I've seen cuts in after Hippler is seated, has been seated for a while. The court's been called to order, and he's starting his official speech. I think it is still possible Hippler addressed the counsel table and said what he wanted to hear during the plea. And that might have happened before the cameras started filming. Because if you see, Hippler is already at the bench and is in mid-sentence, essentially, when the audio comes on this feed. So it is possible that I did indeed hear what I heard and shocked me, because it sticks in my memory. You see the curtain behind me moving? It's because the little cats are attacking everything. They're monsters at the moment. Anyways, the point being is that I'm not trying to save face per se, because I have no problem saying, hey, I might have been wrong. Maybe Hippler didn't say, I want to hear you say you did it and you did it alone. But when I went back and looked at it, I was like, well, wait a minute. The video that everybody saw doesn't have Hippler coming into the courtroom and a period of time before the cameras start rolling. So it is possible that Hippler did say that. I just wanted to clear the air. It may not have happened. I may be wrong. I'm going to stop pointing it out, but I want to point out that video does start, and most of you seen the video that starts after Hippler has already come into the courtroom. Things have happened. Things were said, I believe, off camera that many people didn't see. So for what it's worth. I also wanted to address a few other things. If you look at the screen, and I don't think I got my mouse really enlarged on my screen, but for some reason, StreamYard or whatever I'm using here to suppress it. Do you see my mouse cursor moving in front of Ann Taylor's bench right there? I want to show you a few things. So this right here up above Ann Taylor into the corner looks like people have said that's Steve Goncalves in the courtroom with an officer keeping watch on him. And I said emphatically that it's not Steve Goncalves. I made another mistake and I said I thought Steve Goncalves was actually wearing a completely different colored shirt. Let me clarify something. This is a shot from Steve Goncalves outside of the courtroom. He's got glasses on. He's got a blue shirt. I can see why people confuse this guy with this guy. Oops. You're not seeing it because I'm not sharing my screen. I'm sharing let me do this. Let me remove this and add this. Sorry about that. I got to be able to toggle back and forth. I'm going to share the entire screen here in a second here. And if I want to share sound, I got some technical difficulties to work through at the moment. All right, we're going to add this. Now can I tab back and forth? Okay, yes, I can. All right. So again, up here, if you see, oh, hey, look, my mouse, what the hell? Now my mouse is big because I'm sharing my screen and not a tab. There you go. So now I got a nice mouse pointer. Here we go. All right. This individual right here, people have said was Steve Goncalves, and that this deputy is standing beside Steve Goncalves to keep a watch on him. And I said that's not Steve Goncalves emphatically. And I thought he was wearing more of a burgundy shirt out front. Now, this is actually the shirt that he was wearing. This is a picture of Steve Goncalves out front. And here's a little bit of a close-up on that. That individual is not that individual. I still maintain that absolutely positively. That is not Steve Goncalves. But to your guys' credit, it is a very similar shirt. He is wearing glasses. He is wearing a blue shirt. I can see why people get confused. This entire bench right here was Koberger's family. I think his mom and dad are off to where my mouse is over here. Then maybe his sister. This could have been a husband or something like that of his sister. These are all Koberger's family. It would make no sense for Steve Goncalves to be sitting there. Also, I can definitively say when I look in, that's not even close to actually Steve Goncalves. It looks like it from a distance, but it's not Steve Goncalves. And I want to point out a few things about that. Also, while we're here, before I get into more of a deep dive on I want to give one more thing. Some people have commented about me being in the courtroom and about Dylan being in the courtroom. So again, my mouse, I'm this guy. I'm this freaking shiny dome head because they made me take off my hat. The officers, as I came in behind me, they made me take my hat off, which kind of sucks because one of the family members has their hat on just fine. I don't know if he made me remove my hat because my hat had Devil's Advocate's logo on it, or it was just a matter of being disrespectful to the court wearing a hat. And maybe they allowed the family to be disrespectful to the court because it's the family, and they're like, fuck it, they get a pass. But maybe I need to be a good boy and take my hat off like the old style. Take your hat off in court to show respect. So there's my shiny bald dome. That's between here. I'll let you know, and I don't want to necessarily point them out, but in the row so when I came, this row in front was already seated. If this is Dylan, some people have said Dylan was sitting right in front of me in the front row. If that's Dylan, it's odd only in the sense that all the family is over here. All the family of the victims were over here. I didn't know who was in this front row, but that front row was indeed seated when I came in. We all filled in behind that row. So that's where the media and I came from. I'm sitting with a member of the public between AP News, Fox News, two members of Fox News, AP News, and a member of the public who's sitting in my row, which I won't point out which one are which. But anyways, that's just for some extra information. Yeah, this I don't, if that's Dylan, it doesn't look like Dylan to me there, but someone said, yeah, Dylan was in front of you in the front row. And I'm like, okay, well, unless you mean the front row over here. Either way, I couldn't tell people's faces from the back of their heads. And so I would have missed that kind of thing. Now, I want to clarify a couple things. One, again, I can understand now why Steve Goncalves was mistaken for this guy. That guy and this guy are not the same guy, in my opinion. I also wanted to point out something else. I have stated many times, and this is where I feel like I'm going to kind of eat crow a little bit, maybe. I don't know if that's the right word. I've stated before that there's a part of me that believes that Steve Goncalves thinks that there's more than one person involved. And part of the reason why he was pissed off about the plea deal wasn't just that they don't get to execute Bryan Kohberger, but that the truth of what happened that night won't come out. Steve Goncalves did say emphatically in an interview piece that I'm going to play for you that he seems to believe that Bryan Kohberger did it by himself all alone and no one else is involved, and he wanted that to be said in court so that they could put all that to bed. Interestingly enough, like I said, if Hippler did come in and say, I want to hear you say you did it alone before the cameras started rolling, that didn't become part of the official plea deal. So that's super interesting to me. But I want to see if I can play this audio for you a little bit where Steve actually says something to the effect of he believes that Kohberger did it alone, and that because they didn't allow that to be said in the courtroom, that we're going to have all this speculation. And now, in order to play the audio for you, I think I have to remove this again, and I need to add it back as an audio tab with sound. So let me get that working real quick for you. Okay, so this should have audio. I'm going to play a few moments of Steve Goncalves outside the courtroom talking about the plea deal that was made, how the families were not involved in the plea deal, and what he wanted the outcome to be. Let me make this full screen and play.
Agreed on something, and then we didn't agree on it. He only negotiated with the murderer of our children. That was the only person that he negotiated with. He didn't give us the common courtesy to negotiate with us, even pretend. He could have just pretended and then lied, but he didn't even pretend. He basically said, your guys' input isn't needed.
The judge.
I know it's really hard to hear, but Steve Goncalves is basically talking about the prosecutor made a deal with Bryan Kohberger, the murderer, without involving the families at all. He could have given the families input. He didn't give us input. Let's continue on. It's really hard to hear. I've got the sound volume cranked up all the way, but I feel like you're going to have a hard time hearing it. But let's see.
Could hear one thought from you that you should remember. What is it?
He's going to own this. He's going to inherit what Thompson did. He's the only one that can fix it. He's the only one who can make it right. He needs to protect those other surviving victims and make this person say that they had nothing to do with it. He did it solely. He did it all on his own, and nobody else was responsible. And then we won't keep having this.
Now, I want to reiterate something that Steve Goncalves says that I find super interesting. By the way, the cat just knocked over my microphone. I told you the cats are going to be a problem. This little guy, the newest kitty, is going to be a beast. He's going to be a beast. Anyways, Steve Goncalves said something to the effect of, in order to protect the other victims, it needs to be said that Bryan Kohberger did it and he did it alone. I find that super interesting. Who do you need to be protected from if Bryan Kohberger did it and he did it alone and he's in prison? He can't hurt anybody from inside prison. So what victims need to be protected? Now, maybe he means protected from the public and monsters like me who keep asking questions. Maybe that is indeed what Steve Goncalves is saying, is they need to be protected from monsters like YouTubers that will keep asking questions if it isn't definitively stated Bryan Kohberger did it and did it alone. But having Steve Goncalves say that the other victims need to be protected and Kohberger needs to admit that he did it and did it by himself, I'm not sure who they're being protected from, unless he means members of the press who won't let it go, or people who are commenting on it who won't let it go. So I just thought that was also interesting. All right, so I think that's it for the moment. Now, I can point out a few more things about the trial if you want. Let me jump through 336. 334. I'm a little bit ahead of this. 334. I want to see if you can hear this pretty well, and I'm going to make a comment about it as it comes up. And we still getting audio on this tab? I think. No, we're not. I got to get the right tab up. That's why. Sorry about this. I got to fumble through this. I'm not used to doing some of the stuff that I'm doing right now. So share the screen. We're going to go full video of that, and we're going to add it to the stage. That should have sound. All right. Let's pay attention to some things that Steve Hippler says from the stand here.
To attempt to do that. This court, in considering a plea agreement, if it were to reject this plea agreement, cannot force the state to seek the death penalty. My role and power in considering a plea agreement is extremely limited.
So I want you to stop for a second, and I'm going to tell you, this is a deeper dive into what happened at the plea agreement. My belief is, and this is what Hippler stated from the stand. Hippler stated that the plea deal came as a shock to him, like it did everybody else in America. I think we're going to play that part for you. He heard about it 2 days before this hearing on Monday, I believe. I think the hearing was on Wednesday. He claims that was the first he'd heard about the deal. He reiterates that he had full plans on going forward with the trial and seeing the evidence play out in court. And he's reiterating that there's nothing he can stop, essentially, about the plea deal. As he says, my hands are essentially tied. There's very little the court can do if both sides agree to a plea deal. It is almost, in my opinion, as if Hippler's a little annoyed that a plea deal was reached after all the wasted time, after 2.5 years of preparing for trial. I think it's some part of him. Hippler wanted to see this play out and see the evidence play out. And he's a little annoyed that after 2.5 years, they're going to come in last second, 2 days before he hears about it, and just completely undo everything that they've been working for 2 years. And I think at this point, in my opinion, Hippler wants to see the trial happen. Whether or not he feels Bryan Kohberger is guilty or not, I feel that Hippler wants to see the evidence play out. It's been 2.5 years. Let's see it play out. Let's see what happens. And so his reiterating is, there's nothing I can really do. You guys made a plea deal, and my hands are tied when it comes to this stage. So he's trying to reiterate essentially a little bit of frustration on his part that this is a deal that's outside of his hands. I'll play it one more time.
For this court to attempt to do that. This court, in considering a plea agreement, if it were to reject this plea agreement, cannot force the state to seek the death penalty. My role and power in considering a plea agreement is extremely limited. My role is to ensure that the defendant's plea is given freely, voluntarily, and intelligently. If those things are met, I can only reject a plea, such as the one in this case, where I'm not being asked to agree to the sentence in advance. If I can only reject it, for example, if the defendant does not meet or admit to all of the elements of the crime. That is, I can ensure what is called a factual basis to the plea.
So I want you to understand what's happening in legalese. In my opinion, Stephen Hippler is admitting, one, reading between the lines, he's a little annoyed that a plea deal's been made. Two, if both sides agree to it, there's really nothing he can do about it. He's required by law to uphold it. And the only way he can reject the plea, is if Brian Kohberger states something that indicates that it's not fully factual, which is why there's a bunch of questions that are asked. Is this true? Are you being forced to say this? Did anybody make a deal with you? Did anybody promise you something? Did anybody say you were going to get leniency? Because the only way off the hook for the plea deal is for Kohberger or his defense team to say they were coerced into it, forced into it. There's almost an annoyance on Hippler's part that there's nothing he can do if the facts stated are stated as facts and there's no argument. I'm going to continue on a little bit here. 536. Let's jump through to 536. I'm going to go a little bit before that. All right.
Decision to change his plea in this case, it was important that I take the plea as soon as possible because of the extraordinary administrative efforts that were otherwise attendant to the process of this getting this trial potentially underway on time, and including the significant process of bringing, again, potentially up to 10,000 jurors to come in and fill out juror questionnaires prior to the beginning of the voir dire process. And so it was important that we, if we're going to go down this road, do so expeditiously so that we can avoid those costs and expenses associated with that. Otherwise, if it was not going to result in a plea, or for some reason the plea were to fall through today, that we could continue diligently towards trial at the time specified.
So again, not to read too much into it, but what Hippler is saying is at the moment that he was notified that they were going to make a plea deal, he rushed having the hearing right away because in his mind, there is still a possibility that the plea deal will fall through. In other words, when you ask Kohberger categorically, did you do all these things and you really don't want to fight it, and you really don't want to have your day before a jury, and you really want to give up your presumption of innocence, all the things he reminds him of. Do you understand you have the presumption of innocence? Do you understand that the prosecution would have had to prove this beyond a reasonable doubt? Do you understand that this is what their position would have been? And he makes the state read what their position would have been, what they were presented in court. After hearing all that, do you still want to give up your presumption of innocence? If he had stated at any point, wavered at all in that, then they would have continued on with trial. So Hippler wanted to give them a chance to continue on for the trial. So let's look at one more piece. I'm going to skip forward to 833, I think. We'll go 832.
The defendant will plead guilty to all 5 counts in the indictment: burglary, felony, and first.
Okay, I want to stop there. Burglary, felony. This is another question that people ask me quite frequently, and I want to see if I can explain this as best in legal terms that I can, being not a lawyer. So it has been asked before. Well, Hippler stated that Brian Kohberger entered the house and murdered all 4 people with premeditation and malice aforethought, that he premeditatedly came in there to kill all 4. Yet, while describing the crimes, he said something to the effect of, you came in to kill Maddie Mogan, and for some reason, he indicated in the wording, for some reason, you went down and you killed Xana and Ethan, almost as if it was an afterthought, like it wasn't the plan to go in there to kill them, but they became an afterthought. And people have asked me before, well, devil's advocate, how can you say it's premeditation if killing Xana and Ethan was an afterthought? If, for example, he went there to kill only, let's break this down. If he went in there to only kill Maddie Mogan, and Kaylee woke up and she never was the intended target, and so he killed her because she woke up and interrupted him. And if Xana, according to Dateline NBC, came up and saw him killing the two of them, and now all of a sudden he realized, shit, I got a third person who just saw me, I got to kill her now too, and killed her. And if in her running back to her room, he's like, shit, now she's with her boyfriend, I got to kill her boyfriend too. And so therefore 3 of the victims weren't intended. How can you say that's premeditated? Here's how it works. If you enter a crime scene for the purpose of committing a felony, it doesn't even necessarily have to be for murder. If you enter a house for the purpose of committing a felony, and you take a weapon with you, and things get out of hand and people die, that's still called premeditation. In the act of committing a felony, and it's usually almost always specifically a felony, so not a misdemeanor, but a felony. If you're committing a felony, and in the process of purposely committing a felony, people die in the commission of that felony, that is still called premeditation. That's step 1. So when at the very beginning, Brian Koberger has said charge 1 is felony burglary, it means if you admit you entered the house for the purpose of committing felony burglary, everything that happens after that point is premeditated murder, because you went in to commit a crime, a felony, and if shit went sideways, that is all part of premeditation. The fact that you went into the house to commit a felony is premeditation, and everything that follows thereafter. Additionally, premeditation in the eyes of the law doesn't mean that you had to have sat around thinking about it for months. Premeditation can literally be, oh shit, that person just saw me, I think I'm going to have to take them out too so they don't leave a witness. That would be enough of a thought, even if it lasts for a second, for premeditation. The conscious decision of, I just saw somebody and now I have to kill them too, would be premeditation. So for those who are trying to understand how it is, one person could have premeditated murder on all 4 victims if they only came there for one victim. That's because in the eyes of the law, if you go to commit a felony and people die, everybody who dies is all part of the premeditated act of committing the felony. In addition, again, it doesn't take any time requirement for you. Xander, the crime-fighting kitty, has been up here 3 times and he won't leave me alone. So we'll just kind of hang out with him for a second. So that's the answer to the question of the premeditation. Let's skip forward to 1017. And then I'll leave time for questions and answers, by the way. So we're looking at about a half hour. I'll do more like 10 minutes of this, and then we'll leave lots of time for questions and answers at the end. 1017, this is a big moment. I think I got the time marker marked out here. So here's what I want to say. In this particular video, and I don't know if you guys saw the 3-panel video that many people saw. In this particular video, Steve Hippler, the judge, is going to ask Ann Taylor to admit that she's had plenty of time to review the discovery. Okay? In the courtroom, I looked at Ann Taylor. My focus was on Ann Taylor. Ann Taylor paused dramatically. It felt like forever. In real time, it did not take that long. But you know how time slows down on an important thing? You're like, oh shit, did he just ask you if you had plenty of time for discovery when you've been saying the entire trial, I haven't had time to review all the discovery, I need more time? And he's asking you point blank, will you admit you've had plenty of time to review the discovery? Ann Taylor paused, even kind of rolled her, God damn it, rolled her eyes. I told you, the cat. Oh my God. The cat just completely ripped my headphones out of my ear. That cat has got some issues. I got to unclusterfuck myself. Hold on. Wow. He just pulled everything off my desk. Whew. Let's try this again. Wow. I got to keep those cats out before doing the thing. I tried to, but I was already late. All right. So where the hell was I? Oh yeah. He's asking Ann Taylor about whether she had enough time to review discovery. Here's the thing, it's funny. I can't watch everybody at one time. So my eyes were on Hippler when he read the question, and then I immediately turned to Ann Taylor. So I missed the nuance. Watch Stephen Hippler's face carefully. I can't really get it much bigger for you. Actually, could I? I can maybe make it full screen. There you go. That'll help a little. All right, watch his face.
All right. Ms. Taylor, have you had sufficient time to discuss this case and all of its ramifications with your client?
I have, Your Honor.
Have you discussed fully with him his rights, defenses, and possible consequences to him of the guilty plea?
Yes, Your Honor.
Have you been able to do all the discovery you feel necessary?
Right there. Right there. I gotta I don't know if you caught this. Steve Hippler, Judge Hippler, literally smirks as if he's almost laughing, like he almost can't keep a straight. He's smiling right there in the frozen frame. He's smiling. He's like, have you explained to your client what's going on? Have you explained to him the ramifications of pleading guilty? Have you had plenty of time to review the discovery? And he smirks. He looks at her and he smirks. He's almost laughing. He knows damn well she hasn't had time to review the discovery. She's told him over and over again she hasn't had time to review the discovery. When he asks her and he smiles and laughs at it, she rolls her eyes like, yes, Your Honor. It's a joke. It's a joke. Hippler knows she hasn't had the time. She's complained about not having the time the whole time. But you know why? She has to say it. If Ann Taylor hesitates and says, no, I haven't had time to review the discovery, the plea deal is off. The only way the plea deal goes down if every single thing is answered in the affirmative, every single question the judge asks. So if you were to ask me, I think the micro expression on his face tells you everything. Steve Hippler literally has a hard time keeping a straight face when he asks her if she's had plenty of time to review the discovery. Let's look at it one more time.
Ms. Taylor, have you had sufficient time to discuss this case and all of its ramifications with your client?
I have, Your Honor.
Have you discussed fully with him his rights, defenses, and possible consequences to him of the guilty plea?
Yes, Your Honor.
Have you been able to do all the discovery you feel necessary?
Right there. It cracks me up. It cracks me up. He literally is practically laughing and can't keep a straight face when he asks Ann Taylor if she's had plenty of time to review the discovery. And she has to pause. Like, this is a shit show. But yeah, I have had time to review the discovery because you have to, or the deal is off. There's no other option, as Lewis said. There's no the whole plea deal's off if Ann Taylor doesn't say she agrees. All right, let's go 1108. I thought this was an interesting thing. I'll go 1106 just to give a little bit of heads up.
I do this to ensure that so that I am assured that you understand the nature of the charges to which I understand you're going to plead guilty, as well as the possible consequences to you of your guilty pleas. I want to make sure your plea is given voluntarily, and I want to make sure that you actually committed the crimes to which you're pleading guilty, because I don't want you to plead guilty to a crime you didn't commit.
Now, again, this is required legal language for a Hippler to ask the questions. But again, it seems that, the Judge Hippler has given him as required by law, but maybe more than that, every opportunity to say, dude, I don't want you to admit to something that you didn't do. If you're maintaining your innocence, understand that you have the presumption of innocence. I want you to tell me you understand you have the presumption of innocence. I want you to understand what the state would have had to have proved in order to put you away and take away your presumption of innocence. I need you to not commit or not admit to something that you didn't do. So Hippler's giving him all these opportunities. Again, it's a legal requirement as well, but you can almost feel like after 2.5 years, Hippler wanted this to go to trial. Even if he believes that Koberger is guilty, he wanted to go to trial and see how it plays out. And this cat will not leave me alone. That's like the 5th time the cat's been around. He's already knocked off all my recording equipment. He's wearing thin on my nerves. And no damage will happen to the kitty. I love animals more than I do people. So let's get that clear. Nobody's abusing the cats when you're off screen, so don't worry. Anyways, let's go to well, I don't think we need to cover those. Well, 1509 might be an interesting one.
Plead guilty.
No.
Is anyone other than the state's agreements with respect to the plea agreement, has anyone promised you anything in exchange for your plea agreement?
No.
Has anyone told you to be untruthful in answering my questions today?
No.
There was a slight hesitation. There was a slight hesitation on Koberger's part. Again, I look for micro stuff, but I wouldn't want to bet my money on it, and I wouldn't want to bet my reputation on it. But Hippler asked him, has anybody asked you to be untruthful in your plea agreement? And he pauses for a moment and says, no. Again, it's a micro expression. I'm not going to hang my hat on it. I just thought it was interesting since we're doing a little bit of a deep dive. And again, I'm going to give you some time for questions and answers. 1750.
Did you sign the document?
Yes.
And this document outlines many of the rights that you have in this case. Should you not plead guilty, did you understand those rights?
Yes.
They include a right to a jury trial. Do you understand that?
Yes.
They include a right to the presumption of innocence. Do you understand that?
Yes.
They have the right to require the state to prove your guilt as to each element beyond a reasonable doubt. Do you understand that?
Yes.
They include a right to confront your accusers and cross-examine witnesses presented by the state, including by utilizing the subpoena power of the court to accomplish that. Do you understand?
That's important to me. Steve Hippler is saying, you do understand you have the presumption of innocence. You do understand that you have the right to subpoena people to testify who don't want to testify. And again, at the heart of this, I believe Bethany Funk did not want to come in. Bethany Funk was fighting being subpoenaed into the courtroom. Ann Taylor said Bethany Funk has exculpatory information, which means that information that'll show that the state's case cannot be true. And she wanted to force Bethany Funk to come back to the Idaho to testify under subpoena. That Bethany was being advised, in my opinion, by the FBI on how to fight that subpoena, trying to say that it wasn't necessary, that she already gave her testimony to the grand jury. There was no reason for her to come to court. Hippler is reminding Koberger and his defense team, you have the right to subpoena people in. Do you understand? Do you understand you have the presumption of innocence and you have the right to face your accusers and you have the right to bring somebody in and subpoena them in, whether they're fighting you or not? Yes, 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 I understand. We're still making the deal. All right, let's continue on. Did I already get all the 19 minutes? Let's go just a little bit further into 19 minutes here.
Yes.
You understand you would have a privilege against self-incrimination and a right to remain silent, meaning you would not be compelled to testify if you did not wish to, had you not pled guilty.
Yes.
You understand you're giving up that privilege and those rights that I've just outlined by pleading guilty.
Yes.
All right, I want you to understand what the state would have had to have proven at trial had you, as to the crimes that you're pleading guilty to, had you, if you didn't plead guilty. Let me find it.
And that's a minor point, but I want you to understand. Again, part of this is legal requirement, so maybe it means nothing more than legal requirement. But it is almost, I feel you almost can feel Hippler annoyed that a plea deal was made behind his back after he had been fully prepared for all this time to go to court and was ready. And as he said multiple times, and I didn't play it for you, prepared to interview some 10,000 citizens of Idaho to do the voir dire process to find out who's eligible. He was ready to go with that. He was making every preparation. His office was busy. And then they came in last second and made a deal. And I think it annoys him. I think it annoyed the state of Idaho. I think it annoyed everybody, because even if he thinks Koberger is guilty, as he pointed out, you realize you had the presumption of innocence. Not only that, but do you realize what the state would have had to have proven? It's almost as if he's saying, you have a really good shot. I'm gonna word this in a way that's controversial. It's almost like Hippler saying, you have a really decent shot of getting away with this, even if you did do it, because the state can't prove what they say you did. So even if you did, are you sure you don't want to take your chances? Like, I want the prosecution I want you to understand what the prosecution would have had to have proven. And I want the prosecution to tell you what they would have shown in court, which was nothing. There was no shockers. There was nothing outside the PCA that really came in at all. And I'm not going to play it all. I'm not going to play Bill Thompson's entire diatribe, but there was nothing. He literally said, we can't definitively place Koberger at the house. We can place his phone near the house. He literally said that. He also had no eyewitness. He did not say, we have somebody who saw you right as you walked into the house, like some people think with the DoorDash driver. That was not part of the prosecution's official statement. That is not what they were going to present in court. So it's almost just as stunning what the court didn't, what the prosecution wasn't going to show in court. All right. I think that's good for now. I did more of a deeper dive than I expected. Let's open up for questions and answers for the last little bit of time. I'll put on my glasses, make sure I can read everything nice and well. Let's see, what do we got? I'm looking at questions now because I've been so focused on everything else. Do you guys got questions, comments? Again, you can also ask questions about Luigi Mangione and his new prison photo that people have been talking about. You can talk about Rex Heuermann and the Gilgo Beach, Lisk, Long Island serial killer case that I'm following, or you can ask more questions about this. Okay, let's continue on. Let's see. Yeah, BK has all those rights, but it doesn't mean Hippler will rule in favor. Yeah, correct. Right. I'm just saying that, again, part of it's legal requirement. He's legally required to make sure the defendant knows what he's giving up, his presumption of innocence. So he's required to do that. I do think there's a part of me that believes that Hitler's annoyed that it didn't go to trial, because that's been his entire life for the last 2.5 years. And it was a waste of everyone's time to make a plea deal at the last second, and not see what the evidence actually was going to show, in my opinion. So Kimberly, let me clarify what I believe the process is for taking back the plea. From what I understand, and I'm not a lawyer, but I have been looking into it, from what I understand, there is not, as some people say, a 30-day time clock. So some people say he has 30 days to rescind his plea. It's not a 30-day thing, from what I understand. The ability to change your plea is once sentencing happens. So up until the sentencing date, which I believe is the 23rd, as somebody put in here, Crystal White said the 23rd, on the day of sentencing, if Koberger were to walk into the courtroom on the day of sentencing and change his plea, there's a possibility he could do it at that point. Once the plea has been entered and the sentence has been rendered and the families have given their witness, their victim statements, impact statements before sentencing, that is now a done deal. And let me reiterate something, because, and again, I believe in the presumption of innocence until proven guilty and all those things. So I'm not changing my stance. I realize that my language sounds a little different today, but Koberger changing his plea is a long shot. Not only would Koberger have to change his plea, but the judge would have to have a good reason to accept the change of plea. It's not just that Koberger can say, hey, I changed my mind. I don't want to plead guilty. I just wasted everybody's time coming in here and doing the pre thing. I change it again. He can't do that. The judge has to see a good reason why he pled guilty in the first place and changed his mind. So if something were to come out that he could reassure the judge, the only reason I pled guilty and lied to you about all the times you said, are you sure you're doing this under your own cognizance, and you're not drinking and you're not making impaired judgment and nobody forced you? What has changed between those statements and now? And then the judge would have to agree that there was sufficient reason to believe that Koberger was coerced, forced, or whatever, even against all the options he had. It's not going to happen, in my opinion. It's not going to happen. So I think I will piss myself in the courtroom if Koberger changes his plea on the stand at sentencing. Once sentencing is done, it is over. Many people say it was over when he pled guilty, and effectively it is, because again, the likelihood that he could change his plea at sentencing is next to none. Let me take this banner off the screen. There's no reason to have that rolling on the screen right now. So again, I don't think we're going to see a change of plea. I'm trying to debate whether I'm going to be in the courtroom or not. Yes, new evidence is the thing that will make a difference. If new evidence comes out in specific, and I pointed this out to people before, but let me say it one more time. If evidence comes forth, despite the fact that Koberger has pled guilty with no appeal option, despite that, in court, when he accepted the plea, they laid down the rules of what happened. You entered the house here, you did this, you did this, and you left at this time. Those are now statements of fact. This is where Kohberger was at a specific time and what he did. If an expert, and let's say, that's not even saying an expert, let's just do a hypothetical. If a camera has video footage of Brian Kohberger across town or at Wawa Park at exactly the time that they say he was in the house killing everybody, it doesn't matter how much he confessed to it. The deal's off the table. If it was physically impossible for him to have done what they said he did and what he admitted to, even his admission would be tossed out. If it's impossible for him to have done it, that would be the only case in which this is going to be undone, is if it was physically impossible for him to have done what they say he did and somebody came through with the evidence. So if new evidence comes forward, if a Cy Ray, for example, comes forward, not with a good argument that Brian Kohberger wasn't there, but proof definitive that Brian Kohberger wasn't even there, that would change. That was the only way that you would have a reversal of this thing, and that wouldn't even be an appeal situation. It's just literally, you can't confess to something we know you could not have done because you weren't there. And we know it because we got a picture of you somewhere else at the same exact time that we say it happened. So it didn't happen. So you can't confess to something you could not have done. That would be the only condition in which that would be reversed, in my opinion. Let's look for some more questions. Do you think there is more leaked stuff that mainstream media is sitting on waiting for a gag order to be lifted? I imagine anything that they could have leaked has been leaked, and if it is, it'll be completely circumstantial like everything else. Only here's the best part for mainstream media. Now that he's admitted guilt, they can say everything they want to, and it'll just be understood that they must be right because he's admitted to it. So now they can bring out the guns and just speculate all day long, and it'll be like, well, yeah, he admitted to it. And the nuance will be like, well, he didn't specifically admit to what they're saying, but it's going to be a moot point. Someone said that Cy Ray is under a gag order and will be coming on Lana's channel after the 23rd. Pretty excited to hear him. That would be interesting. I'm curious to see how that goes down for sure. Yeah, Sherlock Holmes, we don't have to say allegedly anymore. Now we can say admittedly. It's it's true. It's true. I've said before, despite the fact, and I want to make this clear, despite the fact that I know for a fact people do plead guilty for things that they didn't do, it is extremely hard to keep saying that he has the presumption of innocence. He doesn't have the presumption of innocence anymore. He doesn't, because he has admitted guilt. So you're 100% correct. At the point that he admitted, yes, I did it, he no longer has the presumption of innocence. He's admitted it. Now, is it true that people admit to things that they didn't do? Yes, all the time. It is true that people admit to things they didn't do. Is it possible he didn't do it? Sure. Is it possible he did it, but he did it with others? Sure. Is it possible that there's people who were involved in it are going to walk free? Yes, absolutely, positively. There are people who are, in my opinion, there are people who are involved in this who are going to walk free because of the guilty plea. But you're right. The language and the way to talk about this story has changed at the point that he said, I did it, because it's hard for you to continue, rhetorically for you or anyone to continue to say he has the presumption of innocence if he's admitted it. So I get it. And that doesn't mean I don't have questions, and it doesn't mean I'm going to not continue to ask questions. It doesn't mean I'm not going to fill the FOIA requests. It doesn't mean I'm going to still read the book by James Patterson when it comes out in 14 days. No, not even 14 days. James Patterson's book comes out in 10 days. James Patterson's book comes out in 10 days. So I'll be reading that book and covering it on my channel and talking about what new thing might have been added to the story at that point as well. Any other comments or questions? I usually do about an hour. It is about 9 minutes before the close of the hour. So I want to give some last minute questions, comments, concerns. Anybody want to have me clarify my position? Challenge me on if you think I've changed my position, if I'm, have I lost your credibility in your eyes because I didn't say something or did say something, whatever. Now's your time to take a shot. Yeah, this is my summary. If I do not believe he did this either. If he's involved, he did it alone. He wasn't alone. I do believe that. I don't believe that he did it alone. I think there was accomplices. Whether it was accomplices in committing the murders or accomplices in luring people into the house to be there at a certain time, whatever the case may be, I think the story hasn't been fully told. But it's a lot harder to go down that road because there's an admission now. Had he cleaned the sheath a little better before leaving the apartment, you think he would have gotten away with it? So I totally don't want to be disrespectful when I answer this, because it's a good, legitimate question. You have to understand that your statement means that you know definitively Bryan Kohberger left his DNA on it. You have to understand the defense had been saying how the DNA got on there was planted. The DNA itself may have been planted on the thing, and the whole development of the DNA was suspicious in the first place. It was a weak part of the case. I know for a lot of people it was the smoking gun. His DNA was at the case, and therefore it's end of story. We've already covered on my channel before, for example, how a person was arrested for a murder he didn't commit simply because the EMTs, when he was drunk, put an oximeter on his finger, and then later during a murder scene took that same oximeter and put it on the murder victim's finger and transferred DNA from one person to another and placed him at a crime scene he was never at. That kind of stuff happens. And while that sounds like that's not even remotely what could have happened to Bryan Kohberger, there are other explanations on how Bryan Kohberger's DNA, if it really was on the knife sheath, which is again under debate, how it got on the knife sheath. For example, if another person who was going to go commit the crimes just knew Kohberger and said, "Hey, look at my cool new knife that I have. Take a look at this," and he touched it, and the guy takes it back and then commits a murder with it, doesn't mean Bryan Kohberger was at the house. It just meant Bryan Kohberger may have had contact with that knife sheath at some time. So in other words, what I'm saying is the question, if he had done a better job cleaning his knife, and I understand he admitted to guilt. So let's go down that rabbit hole. If Bryan Kohberger really did it, and if Bryan Kohberger had done it, therefore, if he had cleaned the knife better, would he have gotten away with it? I don't know. That's huge jump of logics, but it's a good question. It's a great question. I don't mean to be disrespectful with the question. It's a great question. I'm looking through questions to see if there's anything else I want to riff on before closing out. Key Boom, thanks. Just want to shout out, let you know I enjoy your show and learning more about lots. Also try to catch Birdie's show. Keep up. Thank you so much. One thing I'm trying to do is use these cases to educate people on the judicial system, law enforcement tactics, mainstream media tactics, regardless of how the case ends up in the end. It's an educational vehicle to examine how the law functions, how it is dysfunctional, and all those things. So I appreciate that regardless of how you feel the case ended up, that you found some benefit and worth out of discussing it. I appreciate that. Yeah, there's lots of, somebody said for here, DA rants, they could have had a K-bar and bought one to frame him. Yes, that is very possible as well. Again, it is possible. By the way, in case you did, I wanted to point something out about the DA rants thing. You may have, like this person noticed, it used to say Devil's Advocates 2024 whenever I would post. Now it says DA rants. The reason being is that somebody, a little birdie told me that I might want to change my name on my YouTube channel to make it a little easier and to clarify my channel's description. So I made some changes to my account, and I put a better channel description on what it is the Devil's Advocates is about, and changed my nickname to something easier to remember, like DA Rants, because a lot of people call me DA. And in unintended consequences, I didn't realize when I did that I would then show up in chat here as DA Rants, and people are like, what the hell is DA Rants? What happened to Devil's Advocates? That is Devil's Advocates. I just changed the branding a little bit today, trying to make our channel a little easier for people to understand, because some people had said, hey, not everybody can understand exactly what the Devil's Advocates channel is about. And maybe you still don't know, but with DA Rants, but I've done some changes, some cosmetic changes to make it easier for people to remember my name and to remember my channel and what I do. All right. I think that's good for today. I want to remind you of a few things on the way out. First of all, if you haven't done so and you're interested at all in what I've done or what I've talked about and you like my style, please make sure you like and you subscribe and hit the notification bell, and not just hit the notification bell, but put notifications all so you don't miss lives, because people have been hitting notifications and then they don't get notified when I go live, because apparently that just gives you notifications on my newest videos, not necessarily when I go live. So if you want to see the lives, make sure you get notification all. Also keep in mind that if you are interested in extra content for a cheap amount of money, $2.99, I do have some members only content in which I try to give thoughts that I haven't fully vetted, that I'm working on. So I'm more careful about what I say when I go public, and sometimes I will give members a little sneak peek on some things that I'm thinking before I fully thought it through. So if you like that kind of thing, you like to see sneak peeks of videos before they come out, you like to know what the plan is and who the special guests are for the week, I will often tease those ahead of time to members only, so before telling the larger public what's going on. So consider that as well. Tonight, don't forget, if you are interested in this, I'm going live with Pete Alturi from Murder Metal Mayhem. We do a little mashup show called Devil's Mayhem. It's Devil's Advocates and Murder Metal Mayhem together. Pete Alturi and I, older gentlemen like myself, we kind of have a cool vibe together. He's more mellow and slow, and I'm more 100 miles an hour, talking a million miles an hour and full of energy. So the two of us kind of do well together. He kind of tampers me down a little bit. Maybe I bring out a little edge in him, and together we do a pretty cool show. So if you are interested in that, make sure you check that out. That's at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time tonight. Devil's Mayhem. It's queued up. You can sign up for it on my channel right now to get notified of when that goes live. And then tomorrow night, I'm doing a live at 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, my normal Friday live, followed by the After Dark show. And Birdie Bombshells is going to come on and have drinks with me. We're going to get a little lit and get a little irreverent, more so than on this show. Drop a few more probably unsavory things to say as we have a few drinks together on Friday night's show. It's for adults only. It's streamed on my Backstage account. It's in Discord for adults only. So if you like that kind of format, and you'll be able to be in Discord and take the mic and talk right over me, so you don't have to just sit and listen to me run my mouth the entire time. So if you like that kind of format of being able to tell me what you think, have a few drinks, get loose, say something that you wouldn't say to the public, because, well, it will still be public, but it'll be on the Backstage account with a much smaller audience. Check that out. All right, everybody, that's it for today. Thanks for entertaining me on what turned out to be a deep dive of the courtroom hearing that I was at. And again, I'm planning on probably being there on the 23rd for the final sentencing of Bryan Kohberger. More than likely, I'm going to be in the courtroom on that. And then, by the way, as a teaser, Ali Benevento, my attorney friend from South Carolina. Fuck, I just forgot. South Carolina. She's going to be on the show. She's been a criminal defense attorney for 15 years. She's going to come on the show on Monday following the plea deal, and we're going to talk about some of the questions you guys might have about the final plea deal and the sentencing of Bryan Kohberger. So if you want an attorney's perspective, that would be a great show for you to watch. All right, I'm missing comments because I wasn't on the comment page. So hope you guys will enjoy catching both either Pete Alturi and I tonight for Devil's Mayhem, or Monday where Birdie Bombshells and I, or Friday, don't forget Friday, where Birdie Bombshells and I have a few drinks and get a little loose. Talk to you guys later.